Piers, what's your biggest failure?
I've had several failures, relationship-related failures, but let's talk about business because we'll be here all day. I guess I've had businesses where they failed for various reasons, but at the end of the day, you're the boss, you're the CEO, in my case, a co-CEO. So I had businesses where we built a cloud computing business. We won lots of big tenders, got to 10 million in revenue, couldn't raise the finance, had to sell in a fire sale. So for me, I learned a lot. I love seeing the people that work with me going on to do great things now. And some of them came back to work for me, which tells you something. But that was probably the biggest sort of failure in terms of it being out there. I had lots of other failures, lots of investments, where no matter how much, and you've probably been there yourself, time, energy you put in, you think you can make a difference, help them pivot, help them get the product market fit right. But at the end of the day, you can't. You're not the entrepreneur. It's not your vision. You can't run that business. So I've seen lots of investments fail, no matter how much energy you put in. And sometimes, it's Darwinian. Things have to fail. That's how you progress.
Are there any things in the successes that you've had that you think are common across all the successes?
I think my sort of common theme for me, I would say, is you often hear about resilience, right? But I've been on TV, yeah, but people forget I was a lawyer in the city, then a banker. And as an investment banker in those days, you kind of ran the deal, and I was at Credit Suisse, so I didn't leave my desk literally for 3 years. But what I learned in banking was a work ethic. It was a work ethic that, you stay almost until you get the job done. And very, very professional, a great high quality, otherwise you got fired or your bonus was sort of minuscule. And I learned that work ethic. Now, when I went into business, into the 2000s, early 2000s, it took me 2 years almost to calm down. Because I realized that people who had normal jobs in the normal world, they had family and they had hobbies and they wanted to go home at the weekend. So it took me a while to calm down. But that work ethic, I think, has always stuck with me.
That's an interesting point, right? I mean, people always talk about work-life balance, which is kind of what you're talking about there. For work-life balance, is it a real thing? I don't think it's a real thing. I think it's a lie.
Complete nonsense.
It causes people pain because they feel like they've never given enough time to their family or enough time to their health or enough time to the business. My view is you should just include it all in one life. There's no work-life balance, it's just life.
Well, it's kind of like Hungry Hippos, isn't it? You have to sort of find a way of balancing it. But anyone who's reading anything on the internet, whether you're looking or social media, telling you that you are failing because you're not finding this nirvana, this sort of work-life balance, it doesn't exist. When you're an entrepreneur, when you're building a business, there are times where you literally can't get to your kid's recital because a client wants you to turn up and do something, a very important one. You are going to make sacrifices, both sort of professional and social as well, with your family and your friends. It's just the nature of the beast. And part of the reason why you're doing what you're doing and putting up with that is because you have a vision and you want to create a difference or wealth, whatever it might be. But there is no straight line. There's no straight line growth. You meander through life and business because you're trying to find the path of least resistance. But on the way, you're going to come up against blockers and things that they can bring you to tears, but that's just the way it is. And if that's not for you, you probably shouldn't be starting a business.
Anyone that knows your background, you probably don't need to work today. So what motivates you to work as hard as you're working?
Well, something like not needing to work is one is, why do you work? So one is clearly money. The other one is I made money and I've lost money over time. But one really for me is it's the experience, it's the process. So in the last, 5 years, I've started probably 3 businesses. One hasn't really worked out. One, Atherton Bikes, we're now probably the world leading innovative mountain bike manufacturer, won the World Cup first and second last year. You've got Implement AI, it's growing like a weed. So I can't stop. I try and go plural. I advise, Sky, very large car manufacturers. I was on the board of the government bank during COVID. I try and go plural. And then I see an opportunity, an idea, something that excites me, and I start talking to people. Before I know it, I've started a business. So I don't think that's ever going to stop. I think over time, I'm less so the CEO. I'm more maybe the chairman or an advisor or an investor. I think that will continue in terms of not actually being the person running it day to day, because you need a certain amount of energy for that. And as you get a little bit older, maybe you do or don't have that. So my role's changing, but I don't think I'll ever stop being involved in building businesses, no matter how much money you make. And there comes a point where your cup starts to overflow, and it's a question of what do you do with that.
I think having a purpose matters. I mean, there is an argument that it won't be long before AI takes away 80% of jobs and we'll be on universal basic income, right? So then what will people do? What do you think people will do?
So I think AI is any technology, especially artificial intelligence, it's about horizons, isn't it? So if you're looking at, I talk about this sort of human first world, which we're now left, now in this kind of AI-assisted era, we call it, and you can have this sort of AI-first era. But in this AI-assisted era, there's a huge opportunity. There were threats, but there's a huge opportunity, especially if you're an entrepreneur, to augment yourself with artificial intelligence and build businesses and think in new ways and, you know, transform what you do, how you do it, and eventually society. Now, inevitably, that kind of pyramid, as well, look at, I'm sort of building a pyramid with my hands, that pyramid has been filled through the various industrial revolutions with technology. And humans, we have to migrate the top of that pyramid. That's what I kind of picture I think in pictures, at the top of that pyramid and create and add more value. Now, inevitably, in this industrial revolution, the fourth one, led by AI, that cognitive labour and eventually physical labour that's being replaced, excess demand from, you know, new working classes or middle classes during the various last 200 years isn't going to soak it up. So we're going to find that there will be a point of opportunity, but there'll be a tipping point where there'll be a societal question about what do most of us do all day. And I'm not talking here about admin assistants and Uber drivers. The people with the biggest bullseye on their backs are expensive cognitive workers, because replacing them creates a huge amount of value. Lawyers, doctors, surgeons, consultants, they're the ones that are going to go first.
Yeah, well, it's just exactly the opposite to what we probably all thought 10 years ago.
We thought creatives.
Yeah.
I was a trustee at Nesta, £600 million foundation in the UK. A lot of research on AI, where I first got interested in it. And the outcome was, if you're creative, you're safe. Mm-hmm. Now, my view is that we might start looking at certain skills. We value cognitive labour in hedge fund managers, in lawyers, doctors, accountants. And actually, in the future, it might be a masseuse, a stonemason, someone who cuts hair, who actually have skills that robots and AI can't actually fulfil. So you may find they're the ones that start earning the big bucks.
Mm. My company was bought by PricewaterhouseCoopers. It was the largest creative agency in Asia when I sold it to them. And I asked them why they bought it. They told me two reasons. One, the culture, the company, which they couldn't recreate. They could hire everybody and pay them more. They couldn't recreate the culture. Second thing they said was they thought that the creative industry was never going to be disrupted.
How wrong were they?
Well, this is it. I think but I had this belief, well, I've seen this as a quote by someone else, it's not my quote, but I like it, which is like, AI is not going to take your job, those using AI are. Do you think that's true?
That's pinned in the top of my Twitter.
Oh, is it really?
X account, sorry.
But it might be your
it wasn't my quote, I nicked it as well,
I knew, yeah.
But it's pinned there.
Right, I didn't know that.
And that is true. So in this kind of AI-assisted era, this period of time we're sort of in now, that's absolutely right. So my view is this, if you're listening to this or watching this, you need to take one thing away. It's that you as an individual should augment yourself with AI. Use the paid platform, not the free ones. It'd be the best $20 a month you ever spent to work with, collaborate with, use as a sounding board, use as a sidekick, a mentor, whatever. And you'll find over time, don't forget, AI today, I don't mean tomorrow, today is the worst it's ever going to be. So tomorrow, it'll be better. Use it. So individuals, organizations, nation states need to embrace this and implement it and understand it. Because in an exponential world, being left behind makes it very, very hard to catch up. And you're right, I think that, well, one of the things about the large organisation that bought your business is they bought your business because they can't go after that long tail. In an AI-driven world, the big players can, because they can hyper-personalise, which they can't do. That was the realm of SMEs. So we as entrepreneurs and SME owners have to think about how do we stay ahead of the game? Because it's going to become less obvious as to who's going to win in each market.
True or false statement? 90% of businesses fail in the first year.
I think that's probably false.
Do you know how many?
It takes more than a year to fail, but usually the vast majority do. But I think that a lot of the businesses included in that number may be sort of small side hustles. People aren't too serious. They're testing it, which is fine. That's something you have to do sometimes. But I think I don't know the exact number. There's research all over the place. But it's a high majority fell, but at least half within 3 years.
Yeah, I know the number because this is kind of a trick question. No, but it's interesting because most people listening to our content, if I ask them how many businesses fail in the first year, nearly everybody answers about 90%. It's a lie. That belief people have, actually in England, is 23% fail in the first year.
How many failed after 3 years? You know?
Exactly, 64%.
Yeah, okay, that's about right.
But here's the fascinating thing. First of all, 70% of all stats are made up anyway. So,
yeah.
But how you ask the question often gives you the answer you want. Because what is failure?
It's also how they measure it. It tends to be company's house.
Yeah, companies close down, exactly.
Yeah.
But and that's exactly the point I was going to make. And I wanted to ask you what you think of this. It's like, okay, so I've had quite a few businesses that have failed. one business was a comic book business, and within 3 years it failed. But for the first year, we made money, it did well. Like, failure at the end doesn't mean during the process you didn't learn,
Yep.
you didn't gain experience that can be compounded later, to what your point is
Yep.
earlier, and you didn't make money.
Yeah. Well, I have lots of entrepreneurs, people who start startups, especially young people, and they say, I'm passionate, I'm starting this business, and I can see it in their eyes. They think this is the one that's going to enable them to buy an island, right? And I always say to them, that may be the case. However, it's highly likely this won't work out. But you will, on your business number 2, 3, even 4, you will realize that you've learned a huge amount, and your ability to execute and avoid those potholes is why I created a course to help people do this. Your ability to execute, which is why you have serial entrepreneurs, they've learned how to avoid the pitfalls that a new entrepreneur, one who's straight out of the box, is probably going to fall into. So that's quite important. And along the way, the secret is to, when you have mistakes and things don't work out, is to try and avoid as much pain for the stakeholders involved as possible.
There's a phenomenon around all the world's knowledge to help people get where they want to go is out there for free, but people can't be bothered to watch it. So you've actually created a course, for example, right? Free knowledge, all your business experience. How long have you been in business?
Since I was 13. I'm 53 now.
Right. So quick maths.
40 years.
Yeah, 40 years you've been doing business. All of the knowledge that you've gained in 40 years is available. We're going to put it up on HelpBnk.com, right? It's available for people. Why aren't people going and grabbing this information? What do you think it is that stops people grabbing that information? Do you think there's a psychology behind it?
Well, I think so. For many, many years, it was quite hard to access the information unless you had social capital, people in your network, your family, your friends, that could sit down and help you and explain business to you. Then you have the explosion of the internet and content, essentially. And then you've got this sort of continuum almost of hard to find, and when you find it, it's probably quite useful because it comes from an individual, through to where we are today, which is what's real, what's useful. There were so many people, this is why I created my course, right? I got so frustrated with looking at the internet and people asking me basic questions about business, and I thought, surely, I get stopped in Starbucks, on trains, in public toilets, in restaurants, you name it, and asked the same question. And I thought, surely this is on the internet. So I started looking myself, and you realise there's a lot of sort of nonsense out there. You know, you don't really know what's useful, what isn't. Who knows what they're talking about? Lots of people who are famous business gurus have never actually run a business. They've only ever run a business selling business courses. So you've got to be slightly careful, increasingly in contact with AI as well, what's real and what's helpful. And I always say that you've got to find entrepreneurs that have done it, have got the T-shirt. They're the best ones, whether it's on a course, whether it's a conversation. They're the ones most likely to help you, spend time with you, and the ones who are going to have the best advice.
I actually warn people to be careful of people that are saying that they're successful business people selling a course. Just be a little bit careful because, frankly, I'm sure you're saying, if I want to make money, I'll start a business because I know what I'm doing in business. So I can give people the knowledge for free because it helps people. Why not?
So I had that. So I built a course, right? And I thought, I'm going to make a course. It nearly killed me making it, right? It was like
not easy
76 lessons, 10.5 hours. It's everything from, how do you create a company to what's a VAT return, all the way through to sales and marketing. It's kind of pre-AI, so there's not a lot in there. And then when I launched it, I had that moment where I thought, well, hang on a minute, I'm now selling a course. And I felt a bit uncomfortable about it. And in some ways, luckily, COVID came about, and I thought, right, and I gave 1,000 away. And since then, really, I've used it as a tool, really, for competition and to give away, and we'll put on to HelpBnk.
I think it's very tempting to monetize your knowledge in that way. I think it's quite, we call it in society give and take, right?
Yeah.
And I actually think that's become normal. I'll help you, you help me. I actually think the way we're built naturally is give without take. Like, you could ask me for a favour, and if I could help you, I would do it.
Yeah.
But maybe you're not the right person to help me anyway. So karma,
Yeah.
right? If you help someone and don't expect anything back, it comes back to you. I'm sure you've had that in business a million times, haven't you?
Not so much in business, but about twice a year. So I've got a van conversion here. It looks like an Amazon van outside. It's like a private jet on the inside. And we're on the M6. And we're in a traffic jam. And this car pulled up beside me, like a guy in a big pickup thing. And he was honking. I thought, what the hell? And I said, sorry, have I cut you on, mate? And he said, no, I recognise the branding on your van. I can't believe it's you driving it. And I just want you to know, this is my wife. This is my business. We pick up high-end cars that are broken down. And 4 years ago, I met you somewhere, and you gave me some advice about how to start this business. And now we're doing £2 million a year. Thank you very much. And he drove off.
Wow.
So that happens about twice. I've got goosebumps literally now.
Purpose of life,
it happens twice a year, and that makes it all those hours where I think, am I giving too much away, or is it all one you also think it's also one-directional travel
Totally.
when you've been on TV sometimes. But those 2 instances a year where someone tells me that spending 15 minutes with me has changed their life, makes it all worthwhile.
I mean, it's legacy, isn't it? That's legacy. People don't really talk about how much money Steve Jobs had in the bank when he died, really. I mean, talk about the product he created and the things that he did, right? That's what matters.
Well, I think it comes to a point where that becomes irrelevant. And I think that increasingly now, I always say that there's a business like a book. There's a business in everybody. So, and I think that increasingly, employers, large enterprises don't want employees. So the gig economy is coming for all of us. So I always say that within a generation, we're all going to be in business. We're all going to be our own units of production, trying to find ways of collaborating and finding work and marketing ourselves, competing with artificial intelligence. So I think we're all going to be in business eventually. So I think
no
it's
choice.
a core skill that everybody should learn, and everybody should at least once in their life, because even if it doesn't work out, you'll learn a lot about yourself to start a business.
I'm going to use that clip you just said there. I can't tell you how many people have given me hate because I've said anyone can be an entrepreneur. It's all teachable. Just a question of what type of entrepreneur you are. It's like a doctor. There's many different types of doctors. There's many different types of entrepreneurs, and this stuff can be taught. So why is it not taught at school? Why are they not teaching financial literacy? Why are they not teaching business at school? Why are they not teaching sales at school? Why?
So 2 things. One is people say, "Oh, is it learned or is it born with it?" So your risk aversion, your risk appetite, you're born with, but most of it can be taught. The issue of education is, and again, I've been a trustee of a large charity looking at this, is that it was designed for the 3 R's. It was reading, writing, and they say arithmetic. So could you count? Could you read the instructions to the power loom in the mill? Could you count how many bales of cotton there were? Could you write down how many sheets of yarn or material you've produced? That was education. That's what it was for.
They wanted you to do a factory job.
And it hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And education, it takes, you talk about oil tankers and moving them, it could take you 50 to 100 years to move an education system. And that was in a linear world. So in an exponential world, it has no chance. So you've got to think about, and I do this with my children, I've got 3 of them, with my children is, how do I help them learn the soft skills? They're doing AI summer schools. They're setting up their own businesses. Yes, you've got to go and play the game and do your GCSEs, your A-levels, and maybe or maybe not go to university. I don't think that's necessary these days, to be quite frank. But learn the soft skills is going to help you compete and get on in the world you're going to live in, which is the world that I and your teachers do not understand.
Do not understand, yeah. I don't know what you think of this. I think education can be fixed with a slight reframe. The school system, and everyone seems to copy this too, will ask this question. They'll ask, what will you do when you grow up? I think it's the wrong question. The question that should be asked is, what problem do you want to solve in the world? That's why I ask of my 6-year-old. Do you know what he said to me the other day? I hear from David Attenborough that we're on path for a 6th extinction. How can I make sure the human race doesn't get wiped out? That's my 6-year-old.
Yeah.
Just reframe. What do you think? What do you think the right reframing is for the education system?
That's a very difficult question. I think you've got to... So I wrote a blog on this on my website, pierslinney.com blog, and it's about how do you navigate your career in the age of AI, which is kind of the same question in a way, because education needs to support that. And what you have to do in the education system is look at down the line, because there's kind of a fog 5 years out, it's very hard to see through, because the technology is going to evolve in ways we don't understand. But how do you look at technology and what people are good at? And how do you look at where it's going to intersect with this technology and avoid it? Because that's what education needs to prepare people to do and what you need to be thinking about. So it's things like creativity. So I believe that we as humans are going to come full circle and back to a world where we pay a premium for human experiences, live events, music made by humans, art created by humans, services delivered by humans. The AI will do the mundane, the admin, or the boring stuff, and it'll add more value. So I see that. Fine motor skills, as I was saying before, and my speech today as well, I did a talk at Elite Business Live, is that if you are a hairdresser or a masseuse or a stonemason, you may find in the future you're in the big bucks because AI and robots can't do that yet. If a human can hold the earth in our hands, our fingertips can sense the difference between a house and a garden shed, right? Robots are nowhere near having that capability yet and that fine motor ability. So I think we need to find out what are our human strengths. What's the AI good at? There's no competing with AI, because even today, when you look at it and try and understand it, tomorrow it's going to be exponentially better, and try and avoid it. Now, eventually, there's going to be less work for us humans, then we decide, what do we do then?
How old were you when you started your first business?
So I started my first business when I was 13 years old. So grew up in Lancashire. In those days when it snowed, it covered your car. And I did a paper round keep this short, but it was 6 days a week. I got £5 a week. If I was late, I got £5.50 or £4.50. And I thought, there's got to be a better way, man. So my dad one morning, and I learned the most. I was looking at all my businesses I've succeeded, failed in. I learned a lot from this one experience, which was my dad one morning said to me, I want to get out of bed. Can you get my newspaper? Got on my BMX, rode down to the local paper shop, got his paper, brought it back. He gave me the money for the paper and the tip. Some money for getting it. I thought, hang on a minute. So cut a long story short, you can see where this is going. Fly the whole neighbourhood. Sunday morning papers. Newsagent doesn't deliver. So finding a problem. I solve it by buying the papers. I realised at the age of 13, I can't buy for the newsagent because I've got to sell at the same price. So I disintermediated the newsagent and bought it from the wholesaler. Got a massive bundle like you see in the films. Paper dropped to my doorstep every Sunday morning, sorted them out, delivered them, and I earned 20 quid on a Sunday morning and bought my first posh BMX for 400 quid. So I learned customers, build customers, solve a problem, keep them happy, you'll make money and you can create a little bit of wealth.
For the clip later, I want a picture of you on that BMX bike. We need a photo of you on that bike.
I've got one somewhere.
You must have one, yeah. I had a chopper. Do you remember the chopper?
I had a striker.
Striker, yeah.
That was my first, so I had a bumper.
Yeah, nice. Young people listening to this, right? I mean, the paper round example, I've got a similar story about starting a gardening company. What do you think is the real catalyst to those sorts of moments? Because the way I describe it is like it's a muscle in your brain, entrepreneurship. You just need to wake it up and get it going. Yeah. And so how did it come alive in you, though? Like that feels like something naturally in you, but it must have been some point in your upbringing where that was woken up or encouraged.
I'd say two answers to that. So one is, I grew up in a mill town in Lancashire, right? So a lot of our neighbours, we lived in quite a nice estate there. A lot of our neighbours had businesses. But Eddie was a brickie, we called him. We had Derek Diaff, who's still a family friend. He had a joinery business. Graham had a quarry. Had these business, but they're quite sort of manual, did it with hands. So I was always around business. And my mum was always very entrepreneurial. Mum came from Barbados, wanted to work in finance. Believe it or not, in the 60s, you had to be white, really. So she came to the UK as a nurse. Always entrepreneurial. When she was the health visitor in our town, she ran the local slimming clubs, always doing stuff. Enterprising, probably how you look at it. So I kind of learned a lot from her. But I was always fascinated by the Industrial Revolution. I was one of those kids that enjoyed history because I grew up in where you could look out a window and you could see a weaver's cottage or a mill. So the entrepreneurs of the age, both the UK and the big ones in the US as well, the Carnegies, etc., fascinated me. And those stories always fascinated me. And also, I wanted a shiny BMX. I wanted to make some money. And I was frustrated that I couldn't do it fast enough. So they were kind of, I guess, the ingredients that helped me sort of go into business. Now, there are other people who spend a career in a job, and then they realise that 20, 30 years down the line, they can do a better job than their boss. And they do a management buyout. And that's where the venture capital industry really came from before tech. So a lot of people realise many, many years down the line, actually, I can run a business. Now, they might not think themselves an entrepreneur 20 years earlier, but they become an entrepreneur or business owner.
So, I guess, again, I was trying to put my mind and my feet in the shoes of the people listening. You know, someone listening right now, they're 18 years old, they're kind of feeling like their only choice is to go to university. A lot of people feel trapped, by the way. They've got no choice but to go to university. And there's a combination of like, well, they quite like the idea of leaving home and having that freedom, but they don't know what else to do. And university seems to be this promise of like 4 years of, at the end of it, you'll get any job you want. What's your take on the university system and what people should do at 18 years old when they don't feel like going to university?
I struggle with this a little bit myself because I was kind of always expected to go to university. So was my brother. And my mum came to the UK with her sister. And I've got two cousins. One's in a respiratory consultant position, and one's quite a senior lawyer. So you can see where... And so I talk to my children now. I've got sort of a 15-year-old, 12-year-old, some two are going to GCSEs. We have this conversation. And part of me thinks, well, you should do that because it's kind of a safe bet. And when you go to university, you're going to learn to meet people. You're going to find who you are. It's all about learning. You kind of say that stuff in a way because it's kind of an excuse to make them want to go.
Right.
But increasingly, the more you look at education, you think that it's not really relevant to the world they're going to live in. So although it kind of pains me and I have to almost sort of kind of sit down with myself and say, no, don't push them in that direction. If they don't want to go, I wouldn't force them to.
I wish more parents said this, by the way. I wish more
parents
were honest about it.
I find it hard.
I've got a 6-year-old. I've just literally just taken my son out of school. He was in a private school, absolutely lovely. When I looked at it, the truth is, it was daycare, right? I'm sending him there, and I'm sending him to school. But the reality is, I wanted the day off, right? And so I've taken on board to actually educate him myself. It's hard,
And that's quite hard, even what you're doing, because even for us, even when you think you're at the cutting edge of it, the world's moving so quickly.
Well, like you said, I can't predict what he's going to need 5 years from now. I tell you what I can do, though, and I don't know, again, people listening, that's like what you think of this, if you think I'm right or not. You can predict what might not be useful for you to do. You said it earlier, don't do the things you... So I actually think, and this is a bit radical, but if I look at the way medicine has evolved, and you look at things like MRI scans, MRIs, that process of scanning someone's body used to be done by a human.
Yeah.
Right?
Radiology.
Yeah, they used to check with push inside your body to try and figure out if they could feel a lump or something. Yeah. Right? But no one's using human now. We've got an MRI machine. Right? So when AI and AI cloud can predict what's wrong with you better than a GP doctor, why would you go to a GP doctor? That GP doctor didn't sleep well last night. He's got 50 patients today. He's probably going to get it wrong. 7 out of 10 times they actually say what's wrong with you is not right. So you're going to go to AI for your medical...
Well, I was, it gets even better than that. I was a judge in a competition last week, and the guy that won, he basically can take a photo of your eye, normally, and a photo of your eye when you've been injected some dye, so you can see all the veins and the detail in your eye. But you've got to inject vein, which is quite kind of a difficult thing to do. People have reactions to it. So he's creating an AI that take a normal picture of your eye, and it basically recreates the same picture you'd have if you use a dye. And you would have thought, well, how do you create something out of nothing? I said to him, how does it work? He said, we don't actually know. All we do know is, clearly, the structure of the vein in your eye is not random. And the AI, a GAN, a generative, it's kind of AI that kind of, there's two competing with each other. And the GAN has worked out it's not random, therefore it's creating the detail. So you're competing now in a world where we don't actually know what the unknown unknowns are. So again, your children have to be the architect, not the builder. Don't learn to code, pointless. My son learned to code. Well, he started learning to code for 2 years. He ran out of his course sessions, and I said, let's buy some more. And he said, there's no point, ChatGPT does it. And I said to him, well, maybe you should try a few more. 6 months later, I completely agree with him. Learning to code is a waste of time.
Right. You kind of have to wake up to the change sometimes, don't you? Because, I mean, I 10 years ago, everyone was starting a coding school. And I didn't know about AI yet, so I was like, oh, that's a good idea. Everyone should learn to code. It's useful to understand how it works. I see now it's still being pushed on the internet. Go learn to code. Go. Sam Altman actually said it, OpenAI, the other day. He said, like, everyone should go and learn to code. I'm like, that.
Jensen Huang, the CEO, founder of NVIDIA, 2 weeks ago, don't learn to code.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw his interview, but that's what I mean. Like, but it's still somehow in the system that I mean, ultimately, I think... Let's give people some ideas of what they could do. I'll give one, see if you've one. I've had more time to think about this than you, so you can take your time. Like, I think like a prompt engineer. What you tell the AI is going to be quite important. How you instruct it. So prompting is I think, a skill. What questions to ask, a bit like a good interview. Yeah. Like, what questions to ask matter more than who you interview. Yeah. So I think it's the same with AI. Like, if I look, we built an AI inside HelpBnk. And what we've been doing is it's open sourced AI. We use the API, and we've just been applying knowledge to it. As people ask us questions and we get answers that we think are relevant, we've been applying it to the AI. So the AI gets smarter and smarter and smarter. But we're prompting it to think about the right answers to the right questions, as opposed to just, the way people operate. People don't know what to ask AI right now. What do you think of that sort of role? And what do you think is ideas out there to think about?
I think that what you're talking about there is that eventually we're all going to have a personal AI. So two things. So one is, the only thing about going back to university and education is structured education. One thing it is quite useful to know is architecture. So how does a large language model fit together? What is a GPT, a generative pre-trained transformer? Yeah, a GPT is like the be-all and end-all right now. That might be the iPhone 1 of AI technology. There might be something else they create that's much better. LLMs are not particularly good at lots of things, like numbers in some cases. So the question then is, maybe you do computer science, okay? Now, the difficult thing is knowing, so your example about prompt engineering. So we're all going to have personal AIs. Your personal AI will know more about you than you do. It's going to know your heartbeat and your pulse and your temperature at any point. So I wear my wearable here, so it's feeding information in. So that's probably going to be better writing prompts for you than you.
So you train your prompt to do the
See what I mean? So you're training your AI that understands you and the context of you and what you're trying to achieve personally and in business. And when you ask it, I need to write a prompt that does this, it's going to write a much better problem than you. So even that, it can be a layer
that's the good thing about trying to predict the future. Yeah. You layer on top of, like, if you went back and watched Back to the Future movie, I'm still waiting for the hoverboard. Yeah. But no one mentioned the internet, did they, during the whole movie? You know, like, no one even predicted for a second that there'd be this.
Whereas if you watch 2001 Space Odyssey, a film that's now 40 years old,
AI.
It's bang on.
Yeah, it's bang on, yeah. But I think predicting the future is a pretty interesting thing to try and do. I love the futurists, folks out there that try and actually predict what's going to happen. But, okay, so taking it back, if you were to start a business today, you've got no money, you're 18 years old, you don't want to go to university, and you're thinking about starting a business, anything pops into your head that perhaps people should look at?
So my view is I started businesses in the dot-com wave 1.0 because I thought that was a gold rush, right? And I wanted to hitch up to a wagon and head for the West Coast. I think that artificial intelligence, and don't get lost with the technology, right? Just the beauty of AI is that we, you've been through this as well. We started off, my first startup, we had tin in my apartment, okay? Then we moved to cloud, so now there's no infrastructure. It's a subscription, it's fantastic. It released all our capital and ability to start a business because of the cost. And then you start to go and build a load of software, an application, a database, a web app, UI is a nightmare. And oftentimes it never worked out. You ran out of money before you finished building all of that. Now, the LLMs, large language models, call it LLOps, they almost find another layer of infrastructure which enables you then, across the top, quite a thin layer, to be very, very innovative and compete. So that's where you want to play, is understand the technology, understand where it's going, and do what I do in many ways, help other businesses, other people, your point, help people learn how to be a fantastic prompt engineer and help people avoid putting garbage in so they get garbage out. Mm-hmm. But AI is a huge opportunity. There are other things you can do. You can make furniture if you're good at that. But the ones that are going to avoid the cognitive labour disruption and the physical labour, robots, are fine motor, real creativity, and human creativity and innovation that humans, I think, are going to pay a premium for. But there's going to be fewer of them. So you have to migrate to the top of that value pyramid. Otherwise, you will be on universal basic income. I want to say that because people like to run away and hide from that fact. That's where our society is going.
Mm. And I think universal basic income is just a better branded social income. And, in England, there's 2.3 million people trapped in the social system, if you ask me. I mean, a lot of them need help, but a lot of time people are trapped. I know people that second, third generation, I know these people, they cannot start work. They can't start a business because if they earn money, their rent will stop being paid. Yeah. So they're literally trapped in the system. And I don't think universal basic income is a solution.
Right. I'm trying to work my head around it because even UBI, right? UBI has got to be generated from tax receipts. But then who's paying the tax? I mean, I think what we're useless at, and our politicians generally, is reinventing the structure and institution in which we operate and live.
Yeah, well, they don't know, first of all.
The day is coming where they're going to have to sit down and they're going to have to really think about this hard, because if we don't and other countries do, we're going to become an also-ran and irrelevant.
I put you in charge, your business secretary today, what would you do?
Say that again?
Your business secretary for the UK, what would you do?
So I go back to broken record, inspiring, investing in entrepreneurs, providing a level playing field. I've been on the board of big innovation foundations, the government bank. I know how they think. And you have to, I always say, right, I know you think about this, ambition, going back to the towns we know about and the towns we grew up in, ambition is evenly distributed, right? Mm. Access to capital, which is what HelpBnk does, and guidance and opportunity.
Knowledge,
networking, social capital, and financial capital isn't.
Totally.
So the minute you connect ambition with all of those things, which can be quite hard to synthesize. So, for example, British Business Bank, I was on the board of, we ran the startup loans company. So that kind of synthesized access to family cash. Average loan was $7,000. Still a loan, personal loan. But if you can connect ambition with opportunity, social capital and financial capital, then our nation, we will extract, rinse and juice the most value out of it, and the people within it we possibly can. And whatever helps do that, be it fixing R&D, a wider application of EAS, SEIS, innovation, finding more money going into it, expanding the startup loans company, synthesizing social capital, which is very hard to do. And that's what HelpBank's great at, synthesizing guidance and support, which you used to get from your family and your immediate network, is hard to do. That's what you're kind of doing. Put that all together, that changes the game.
we're short on time. What I wanted to do is ask a couple of quick fire questions you know, the staircase that we bought, we put a door on the bottom. I mentioned earlier, people press it. The other thing, people post their dreams into us. So I grabbed one from the staircase this morning. I got it in my pocket. I wanted to. Oh, actually,
I thought that was your office.
Sorry? Yeah, it kind of is. It's in my coat pocket. Jack, would you grab it? I wanted to quickly read it. I haven't read it. I just grabbed it.
Yeah.
I wanted to read the letter that someone has sent their dream. They've sent their dream to us, what they're working on, and you could quickly give your advice to that person on what you think. And just before I do that, a couple of quick questions. And this is, we don't have to use this. I'm just interested. One of the investors in HelpBnk is a guy called Yatsu. He's a billionaire based out in Hong Kong. He believes that Web3 in particular has been a huge wealth generation creator for especially young people. Let's say even with meme coins and cryptos, actually created a lot of wealth, that technology, for people that didn't have any money. That's
it's also destroyed a lot as well.
It's also destroyed a lot of wealth, particularly for financial institutions. A lot of the argument that he made in the podcast where I interviewed him was that AI right now is controlled by very rich, very powerful people. Look at the battle, Sam Altman and Elon Musk suing each other. So there's actually no wealth creation for anybody, you know, on the normal ladder. What do you think? Do you think AI is going to create wealth? And what do you think of his opinion around how perhaps the Web3 world is creating wealth?
I disagree with him. I think the people who are playing in a blockchain and crypto, the problem was that there's a lot of fluff and nonsense about use cases and business cases, when really it was about, can you pump this and make some money, basically. So people got lost in making money rather than business and use cases. And
most people start that way, though, don't they? A lot of businesses, even the internet started.
Most people who make money in crypto are people from certain backgrounds. It's not as broad as you might think it is. However, I believe strongly that blockchain has a massive use case, maybe even crypto as well. And maybe in AI is that the NFT becomes the digital watermark for all content, which is an enormous use case if you think about it. So wherever that lands is going to be worth an absolute fortune. Mm-hmm. So I think that unlike AI is different. AI is not cloud. It's not digital transformation. It's not blockchain where you can or you may or may not get on the horse. I think AI, if you don't, you will be left behind and you will become irrelevant.
Mm. Interesting. We've run out of time, but people are coming in the room. So quickly, maybe quickly read this. So this is an entrepreneur sent letter. I actually don't know what it is about. I know. I'd quickly glance at the bottom. I know it's a she, but I don't know anything about what she was actually asking.
I've just met her.
So what's that?
How random's that?
Was it?
I just met her upstairs.
Okay. I think she's at the event. Yeah, she's at the event. So what would you do if you were her?
So this is Nicole Bateman. So her dream is building a business. She's the founder of Conversations with and the Send a Mum. It's called Conversations basically, and she got Send a Mum podcast. And this really is about, again, talking about trying to differentiate and find markets. This is about helping educators and parents with children with sort of, they might be neurodiverse. And one of the things that we are doing is kind of almost understanding more that humans, we're not all generic. We're very different, and diversity is actually a massive sort of thing that I champion. So if you've got autistic children or they've got Asperger's or they've got some more they're sort of neurodiverse, finding ways for them to succeed and be comfortable in society is a massive, it's not even a niche, it's an enormous market. So if you understand that and you can find a way, again, as I said before, connect this kind of ambition with the opportunity to interact with these particular customers, then you can create a lot of value, both for these people in terms of their lives and their children, but also potentially, if it's a business as opposed to not-for-profit, wealth creation for Nicole herself.
I actually think, by the way, just to end on this and want your opinion, I think the charity model versus a for-profit model, there's something in between, which is a for-profit business that does good. It's actually how I'm running HelpBnk. I really thought about this for a long time. I think the charity model, it can be tough. Economic downturns mean that people can't give you the money.
I'm a big believer that you should try and build what I call a social business. Exactly what you just said, what you described. A business that it makes money, so it's sustainable. You're not basically
relying on external
government or people collecting money, but in the end, it creates value for society.
But this isn't a business model that's explained to people very often. People come to me, I'm setting up a CIC because I want to be a charity. It's almost like semi-ego stroke, that's the only other model. I want to just do good.
But when you explain to them how you're going to build it and create value for you and your family, they don't know what the answer is.
Right. It's a business model I'd like to push a little harder. So, thank you. People are now wandering in. So, appreciate you giving time
Pleasure.
to this.
Thank you for having me.
You are both welcome to the staircase anytime. By the way, we have a car park there if you want to park your trailer up in Twickenham.
I can live outside.
You feel free. We just got planning permission and literally last week put power into the staircase, so we can even plug in. Yeah, if you need power, free parking.
A staircase.
Yeah, literally, it's a glass staircase. It's mental. I'll show you. You can come and visit. It's in Twickenham. So actually, Twickenham's pretty nice. And I don't know if you go watch the rugby, but we've now kind of got a free parking
My daughter
space.
plays for Middlesex County.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool. Anyway, you're always welcome. Thank you so much for giving time to this.
Is that all right?
interview.
Got it?
I think we got it all, yeah.
Ending all right?
Yeah, no, it's all good. That'll be part of the fun.
Was that all right?
That was perfect. I'm actually going to ring her now and just say you gave her feedback.
I had to read a lot quickly.
Yeah, so thank you for that.